Today, we're not going to look at the Strait of Hormuz as just a point on a map. No. We're treating it like what it is, a critical line item in a risk report. We're going to be analyzing the huge infrastructure deficit that surrounds the world's most important energy choke point, and more importantly, what that actually means for you, for institutional investors. So let's just start with this number, 13 to 28%. This is, and I'm not exaggerating, arguably the most terrifying number in the entire global energy market. It's not the price of oil, it's a percentage, and it represents the total actual real-world capacity to bypass the Strait of Hormuz if it were to ever shut down. That's it. Just let that sink in for a second. And that's exactly what this number leads to. This quote says it all. For any portfolio out there with even a little energy exposure, this isn't some far-off geopolitical curiosity. It's a massive, unhedged financial liability. Think about it. The single most predictable energy risk on the entire planet has an infrastructure solution that, well, that barely even exists.
So the big question is, how did we even get here? I mean, for 40 years, 4 decades, everybody who matters has known that the strait could be a catastrophic point of failure. You've had hundreds of billions of dollars poured into the region. And yet, after all that time and all that money, the result is a bypass system that covers, at best, just over a quarter of the total flow. It's staggering.
To really wrap your head around the stakes, you first have to understand the sheer scale we're talking about. About 20 million barrels of oil pass through the strait every single day. That's roughly a fifth, 20%, of the entire global supply. All of it squeezed through this tiny waterway that's only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. It's the classic definition of a single point of failure. Okay, so now we're going to get into the details. And this is where it gets truly concerning, because the arithmetic here, it's just devastating. We're going to look at the 3 main bypass pipelines, and you're going to see exactly why the reality on the ground doesn't come close to matching the theoretical capacity you might read about on paper. All right, let's break this down one by one. First up, you have the Saudi Petroline. Now, on paper, it's a beast. It's supposed to move 7 million barrels a day. But in reality, terminal bottlenecks at the other end caps its actual export capacity at around 3 million. So, less than half. Next, the UAE's 80 COP pipeline. This one's the good news, kinda. It works as advertised, moving 1.5 million barrels a day. The catch? That only covers about half of the UAE's total exports. And finally, you've got the Iraq-Turkey pipeline. Theoretically, it can handle 1.6 million barrels, but between political squabbles and constant sabotage, its actual flow is a tiny 250,000 barrels, just a trickle. Okay, so let's do the math. You take the 3 million from the Saudis, add the 1.5 million from the UAE, and that 250,000 from Iraq. And you get a grand total effective bypass capacity of 4.75 million barrels per day. That's it. And remember, that's up against a daily flow of 20 million barrels. We can't even bypass 25% of the oil. And believe me, this is the optimistic calculation. And if you thought the oil situation was bad, this right here, this is what shows you the most acute part of the problem. For oil, there's at least something, a tiny alternative, but it's there. For Qatar, the world's largest exporter of liquefied natural gas, there is nothing. Zero. Zilch. 100% of its multi-billion-dollar LNG industry is held completely hostage by the Strait of Hormuz. There's no pipeline, there's no overland route, there is absolutely nothing. So this all leads to the really obvious question, right? Why? I mean, if this risk has been common knowledge for decades, why in the world wasn't it fixed? Well, the answer is a really toxic combination of complacency, cost, and of course, politics. First, let's talk complacency. For 40 years, the market basically operated on this core assumption that the US Navy would always be there to guarantee safe passage, no matter what. Second, you have the sheer cost. We are talking $20 to $40 billion and a 5 to 10-year timeline for a single major pipeline project. And finally, you have the real deal breaker, politics. A real solution, a comprehensive one, would require an unprecedented level of cooperation between all the Gulf states, something that, historically, has just never happened. And when you add all those factors up, the complacency, the cost, the politics, you end up right here with this conclusion. This isn't just some minor oversight. It's a systemic failure of risk management on a truly historic scale. Everyone saw the risk coming, but the collective will to actually do something meaningful about it, it was just never there. So this is the crucial point to take away from all this. This infrastructure gap isn't a temporary problem. It's not something that can be fixed with a quick patch. It is a permanent, structural liability that is now baked into the energy market for the foreseeable future. And if you look forward, the picture doesn't really get much better. Even if you factor in emergency plans to expand capacity, the absolute best-case scenario, in the next 3 to 5 years, you might get a bypass for about 9 million barrels a day. That still leaves more than half of the flow completely exposed. The gap remains massive. It's not closing anytime soon. This is what we mean when we talk about a structural vulnerability. For at least the next 10 years, probably longer, any crisis in the Strait, whether it's a political standoff, a military incident, or even just a credible threat, is going to trigger the exact same cascade of events. Shipping insurance will evaporate, tanker traffic will grind to a halt, and a severe oil price spike will slam the global economy. This risk isn't a bug in the system anymore. It's a feature.
You know, this analogy really just says it all, doesn't it? The flood was always a possibility. Everyone knew it, and the world collectively decided to buy an insurance policy that was 80% short of what was needed. The failure to prepare wasn't an accident. It was a conscious choice, made over and over again for decades. And so, this leaves us with the ultimate question, especially for anyone managing capital. Given the sheer scale of this structural deficit and the near certainty of future volatility, the question isn't if a crisis will happen, but when. And when it does, is this massive, unhedged, systemic risk truly reflected in your asset prices? That's the question you have to ask.